email too, which I don't think you did either. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Last email
been
to tools discusses the 10th. So,
yeah, it was I sent me a week before last about this call, so it was a little too early. But I was out for about the time that I would have normally sent the reminder email.
well, at least you're not in Florida.
Yeah. All right, as people join, we'll give a couple of minutes for people to join and for the join rate to slow down. We don't have our usual Secretariat assistants this month. The Secretariat's on retreat. So as you join, please add yourself to the notes in the participants section. Basically sign the blue sheets that way, if you would, please. Do share video if possible. We like for this to be as close to an in-person experience as we can achieve. Do remember that the session is being recorded and will appear on YouTube at some point after the session ends. I pasted a link to the notes for this session into the Medico chat. Everybody should be able to find them that way if you had not found them already. The notes serve as the agenda for the meeting. If you expand the agenda on the right of the rendered version, you can see the full outline of what we're planning to discuss. Does anybody have any bashes for the agenda? Anything that is not already covered that you want to talk about today?
So can we quickly talk about what this TLP transition actually means practically?
What the which transition means?
The trust legal provisions, the TLP transition that is under the XML TRFC.
Sure.
Item, because I have no idea how to handle that.
I'll add some notes in here and we'll definitely talk about that. So added is our second topic. All right, the join rate is starting to slow down. Let me repeat, we don't have Secretariat support for this meeting, so please add yourself to the participant list in the notes as you join. Please, as a group, help capture any action items that we might uncover during the discussion today. So the Secretariat usually does that for us, but they're on retreat. Share video if possible, but remember that we are being recorded and the recording will appear on YouTube shortly after the meeting ends. All right. For our hot topics, the first item I'd like to talk through is a change to our planning for the email processing transition. After several months of iterating on this, we've halted work on the transition into the cloud and are currently working with Sirius to focus on the issues that necessarily came along with the transition from Mailman 2 to Mailman 3 because we were moving into Python 2 to Python 3, things like this. There were a few rough edges that we had pushed to later that we're now saying, no, let's do these now. They center primarily around configuration of lists as lists are created. To date, Sirius has had to manually follow up on any list creation request, doing manual work to configure the list. That's being automated at this point. It's nearly done. We're down now to a few edge cases where we want to change the configuration of whether to use the global allow list for a list or not after the list has been up and running for some time. So we're working that out. Beyond that, we believe that the transition is complete for Mailman 3. There are some rough edges that I'll call out that are due to moving to stricter library code. The Python mail processing code will reject some messages that Python 2 would not, as malformed. One of the things that we've asked for and has been added to the system is better insight for when that happens. We get good trace messages, good log messages now, so that we know when a message went in and stopped somewhere in the middle, we know roughly where it stopped and why. We have learned over the last several months that the approach that we have been taking to date is not going to get us, just very unlikely to result in a system that really meets our needs. There are just some things that we've discovered in the process of the conversation that are telling us that we need to reset and approach this again from base principles. We're defining that new approach, and we'll be engaging in it in the next few weeks. Any questions about that? All right, our next topic, bashed in, is there any other business? Well, we're going to talk about it in hot topics, is the upcoming TLP transition. The trust is working on a document that will define what the boilerplate for internet drafts and RFCs will look like. The changes are intended to be relatively small. There's a draft PR at XML to RFC that reflects what we currently believe the text changes will be. For XML to RFC, we were going to introduce a new set of tokens analogous to the TLP 2009-02 tokens, with all the variants about no modification or whatever, anchored probably at TLP 2024-12. There's a desire for us to be able to make a transition onto the new TLP at the end of December. This is going to depend on the trust publishing the TLP6 and having the text in place and ready for us to use before that happens. Tracking what's happening in the PR on XML to RFC is probably a good way, Karsten, for you to keep up with what's going on. There's going to be a set of analogous changes in IDNITS 2 that we'll be working on soon. And of course, IDNITS 3 will follow. There'll be the strongest signal that this is real and ready to go will be when the TLP6 appears at the Trust's website. Moving up a level, the Trust is moving into the IETF Intellectual Property Management Corporation legal name. There are going to be a new set of domain names and a new website that will come along that reflects this, where things are published. The places where we're talking about the legal entity will say as I currently understand it, Intellectual Property Management Corporation and IPMC. In documents where we're talking about the role that the what has been called the trust will play, it's just going to be the IETF IPM, Intellectual Property Management. There's a plan to keep the TLP acronym, and it's it effectively just changes the T from trust to, and it's in the PR. I forget if it's technical legal provisions. I don't. There is some other T that is in the.
It is
in the
technical,
PR.
yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Jay. So these details will land in the next few weeks, and we'll move forward. And Karsten, I will reach out as soon as things are solid enough for you to start paying attention to what the new tokens look like.
So let me try to explain where the problem is. Of course, you can all do all that. Right now, any user of Cramdown RFC expects Cramdown RFC to put in Trust 2009 into that RFC tag as an attribute value. And that's kind of the implicit legal declaration that people make that use Cramdown RFC. And I don't understand how to transition that implicit legal declaration over to a new one. So, of course, I could change the default value in the tool, but that would essentially be a betrayal of the users that expected that they are submitting this under Trust 2009 rules. So I'm wondering what the explicit action can be or should be that would make a user of Cramdown RFC actually would express the agreement with the fact that we now have a new trust legal provisions document. So
I realize that users will want to go out and check that the content of the TLP did not change beyond the name of the entity, which is really what's expected to be the only change is the name of the entity. But my advice, take it for what it's worth, is that you actually have Cramdown start requiring an explicit declaration instead of an implicit declaration in its YAML at a particular version, next version of Cramdown, and warn people when it's not the most current, and the warning can point them to the details.
Okay, so putting out a warning is certainly something that can easily be done, but the implicit value, the default value, will stay 2009 until people actually act. That's what I can understand.
Yeah, or you could have it just start to error if you don't have an explicit declaration instead of having an implicit default.
That would be very hostile, because the names of these things are extremely hard to remember, and just requiring people to look this up each time they do a new draft, that's not something I want to do. So there is this V variable that I could use. So right now V is 3, and of course I could do a V 3.1 that actually generates that new default. So that would be one way to handle the explicitness of the declaration. But it looks to me that I actually have to continue the default to 2009, at least for V equals 3.
Yeah, well, at some point, the data tracker will start rejecting submissions with the 2009-02.
Yeah, and that would be the point when the warning would get a little bit louder. And yeah, I cannot take it out because we want to be able to regenerate old internet drafts.
Yes, exactly. But when we regenerate old things, it would, it should require an explicit declaration.
Yeah. Okay, I think I understand what to do now.
All right. So as a group, if people could help us summarize what we discussed in the notes, I'd really appreciate it.
So, Robert, if you don't mind, I got some problem with my Chrome and Miteco that stuck me away while you were talking about email. Oh, yeah, and you replied to me. Will be a hard starting requirement. Okay.
Yeah. The reset is taking us back to first principles, and V6 will be a hard requirement from the start.
You made my day. Even if it's only 8 p.m. for me, you made my day. Thank you.
All right. Under the next item for hot topics, there's been a growing need that we finally hit the really need to do this level for having a handle for data tracker persons that other applications can use. Name is insufficient because people have names that change. Two different people can have the same name. Email addresses are insufficient for history because we track people that were authors of documents in years long past where we never captured an email address. We have an activity that regularly occurs where, for whatever reason, the same person ends up with multiple data tracker person records. Quite often it's because they ended up with a new email address registered in a hurried fashion and didn't go through the steps to attach that email address to their existing data tracker person, and suddenly they have two. The Secretariat has a mechanism to combine these into a single person. But we have other applications like Mitico and soon the RPC editor workflow, potentially Zulip, that need to be able to know that these two things that used to be two separate person records are now the same person record, and they need a good handle to do that with. We are investigating creating these handles using something like a UUID. If people have solved this problem well in the past and they have good tools that they suggest that we use, let us know. But it basically will result in a set of identifiers that go along with a person record, and every person record in the data tracker will have at least one. More than one will occur when persons have been merged, or if we discover some reason in the future that there should be some other identifier that the data tracker should associate with that person. These are intended to be opaque. They're not intended to be UI specific things. They're intended to facilitate other applications working with the data tracker database remotely. So
typically, when I look about the IETF profile for someone, it's blah, 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 / the email address of the, I guess the main email address of the person. Will it change?
I'm not planning to change that, no.
Okay, because it's quite useful to get the email address of somebody.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, part of the driving reason for the integration of the RPC workflow management with the data tracker is specifically to get to this well-maintained or better maintained set of fresh email addresses to reach a given person. So.
Tell me about erratas, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not to the errata system yet, but that will also benefit from this kind of linkage. All right. Unless anybody has any other hot topics, we're now down to the FYIs and just progress reports on different applications that we have. Given that we've got the time, I'll go ahead and we can go ahead and walk through these verbally, even though most months I don't plan to do so. Jennifer, is there anything other than the notes that you wanted to call out about the posting submission issue that we briefly had?
No, I don't think so. I just wanted to call out that we had a number, about a little north of 36 drafts that required manual touching to get posted correctly. So if anything, I think the dates are in the notes there. If any drafts appear to have missing links, let us know. I think I understand well enough to know that they're all fixed up, but just keep your eyes open.
This touches on an upcoming change to the data tracker that's been waiting for cycles. We currently stage our submissions on the file system. The submitted bits come in, derived bits from those submitted bits come in and get staged in that spot in the file system. That's done for past deployment decision reasons. That chunk of file system was exposed on the www.ietf.org website to let people look at their submission before confirming it. There were problems and are problems with doing things this way. We will be changing the way the data tracker manages submissions that have not yet been confirmed and posted, placing them somewhere other than a file system. And the problems that we have with this particular issue where NFS negative caching bits won't apply anymore. The bits will either live directly in the data tracker's database or possibly, and even more likely, in a blob store for the period of time that they are in the submitted but not posted stage. So the next FYI that I wanted to call out here is that the registration system is being modified to support having registration open for more than one upcoming meeting at a time, to facilitate people that need a longer lead time in acquiring visas or just permission to go to a meeting. This is in the last stages of development, and we expect that it will be deployed into production before we get to IETF 121. At this point, I'd like to ask that people skim the status reports on the major applications, and if anybody has any questions, just raise them. Otherwise, we'll take them as read.
By the way, thanks, Jennifer, for removing the AD swatching. This was a state that was puzzling the current ISG for quite a lot.
Does anyone have anything else that they would like to discuss? All right, as a closing note for the meeting, we have in the past typically skipped the tools call meeting that came immediately after an IETF meeting but I think we're still in such a period of dynamic changes that will leave the November meeting scheduled. It is the week, it would be in the week immediately following the Dublin meeting. If it turns out that there is absolutely nothing to talk about, we can cancel it at the last minute, but we'll leave it scheduled for now in case there is something that we do need to discuss. Do remember that these meetings stay fixed in time in North America, so for the rest of the world, they shift around. I feel like this is not necessarily fair to everyone, but we've brought it up several times in the past and decided that we'll keep it that way. If it ever starts to irritate someone, do feel free to raise the question about the scheduling, and we can discuss changing it going forward.
Just one point, Robert, regarding the RFC editor website. Is there any chance that this team can have a pre-look rather than screenshot?
Can have a what?
A look, right? So something like a testing URL where we can do...
Soon, not yet. So it's still really front end, and I think looking at the screenshots in the PR are the best way to review what's happening.
Okay, thank you.
So, all right. Well, I think we are to the end of the call. Thanks everyone for taking time to join these sessions. We appreciate the engagement. It helps us quite a lot. And hopefully we'll see most of you either in person or online during the Dublin meeting. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Robert.